the sun. Burst to my bedside with a day's surprise. Faith in the marvelous bloomed anew each dawn. Flowers bursting fresh within my heart each day. Then looking on the world with simple joy, on insects, birds, and beasts, and common weeds, the grass and clouds had fullest wealth of all. My mother's voice gave meaning to the stars. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe truth is larger than any one book or way. Religion and science go hand in hand. Integrity requires freedom of conscience. Diversity is something to celebrate. In the struggle for justice, we come alive. Our highest aspiration and calling is love. Now when I turn to think of coming death, I find life's song in star songs of the night, in rise of curtains and new morning light, in life reborn in fresh surprise of love. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever path you are on, you are welcome here.
In the face of adversity and self-doubt, each week we light our chalice to remind us that even when we're feeling all is lost, it is not. Life is unfolding around us, in the slightly squashed face of a newborn child, in the toothless smile of a toddler, in the chubby cheeks of a school-age girl that we might pass in the street, in the raw, know-it-all swagger of the teen who served our coffee this morning. Let these images and this flame rekindle the light of hope in our hearts.
Thank you, Donna, and welcome to Bella, one of our newest worship associates. Show her some love. We're excited about her this morning, joining the team. She's shadowing Donna and learning on the job, so we're grateful for you. Well, welcome to West Shore. Best place to be on a Sunday morning here in Cleveland. It's hot out there. Have you noticed? It's cool in here. Glad you are here this morning. So much good stuff going on. Check out the West Shore Weekly in your order of service about events coming up and how you can get involved. Now, one thing I do want to emphasize coming up this Thursday, the panel on immigration, faith, and sexual identity. It is sponsored by West Shore's Undoing Oppressions group. Undoing Oppressions is bringing John Patrick Kearns from Refugee Response, Gulnar Firasta, Development Director at the LGBT Center, an immigrant herself and a pastor, and also Pastor Ryan Wallace from Fairmount Presbyterian. They're going to come together for a 45-minute presentation, followed by a time for Q&A, as well as opportunities for how you can meet local organizations, learn how you can get involved. This Thursday, starting at 6:30. Please be sure to register for this event if you want to show up. The second thing I want to bring your attention to requires your phone. Can you pull out your phone just real quickly if you want to participate in the magic of what I'm about to show you? Pull up your photo app. Just real quickly right now, pull up your photo app. And you guys can be seated. You guys can be seated. And what I want you to do is I want you to open up your trifold, and you see the QR code right here, right underneath Deeper Dive? Just train your phone on that, because I want to show you where that takes you. It's a new feature for us. I want to thank our new business administrator for making this possible. So what this does is it takes you to a site called Linktree, which offers an online resource for you to go deeper with the sermon topic. So you just can access that stuff very easily, as well as to help you stay closer in your connection with West Shore social media. So isn't that cool? The magic of the smartphone. Anyhow, wanted to be sure you knew about that resource. How many of you, when you hear the word QR code, you get anxious? Sorry for increasing the anxiety. Others of us were pretty excited. So at any rate, just wanted you to know about that. Now, let me ask, if you are here for the first or second time and you do not mind people knowing, raise your arm. Hey, we're glad you're here today. Thank you so much. Now, if you were here last week, we learned that probably 3/4 of our congregation are introverts. And so if you're here for the first or second time and you're an introvert, well, we're glad you are here as well. We all belong to this space. We're going to go into our greeting time. It's going to end with the sounding of the bowl, so please be listening for that. Let's greet each other right now. Let's do it. Here we go. We come to this good morning, remembering the journey of freedom. The land we are on was once another's. We mourn the legacies of oppression. Healing is our way forward. Joy is the birthright of all.
The strong man at a circus squeezed the juice of a lemon between his hands. He said to the audience, "I will offer $200 to anyone who can squeeze another drop from this lemon." A very thin, scholarly-looking woman came forward, picked up the lemon, strained hard, and managed to get a drop out of it. The strong man was amazed. He paid the woman the $200 and said, "What is the secret of your strength?" "Practice," the woman answered. I was the treasurer of a Unitarian Universalist church for 32 years. This morning, we thank our West Shore treasurer, our finance manager, and everyone else who oversees finances. We are in good shape because of their attentions to details and their careful management of all of our dollars. I might hire them myself personally. I could do a much better job with somebody else doing it. We are thanking you also because your generosity has helped us accomplish so much. Let's keep on keeping on. The more juice we squeeze out, the more ways that we can change lives for the better. The offering will now be taken and gratefully received. Thank you. This poem this morning was written by the Reverend Anthony Makar, and it's called Making the Best of It. I looked for a space clear of rigs and parked the sore thumb of my Volkswagen, went in the diner, found a waitress with her hands full of plates and the place packed with loggers, some trying to catch her eye for a flirt, or talking over Merle Haggard on the jukebox. So I didn't wait for her. I took a menu, slipped in a booth, and looked hungry. It's then I noticed the makeshift stage in the back. A man as huge as any other in this space doing a sound check. Merle turned down to a whisper. The waitress finally came. Ready? But as she followed my eyes to the stage, she said, "You've got a real treat coming up." Then, "What do you want?" Watching him pull a horsehair bow out of his army surplus duffel, thin between the meat of his fingers, I told her, and as she left to put the order in, I saw him lift up a cross-cut saw, grip its beechwood handle, steady it as he polished the curved-back steel so it reflected light. He pulled up a chair, got comfortable, cracked a few jokes with some of the folks watching, and began. I hardly remember the waitress returning. I was so unprepared for the sound. It was Chopin. With all of the grace of the piano, although playing it, he looked a little like a wrestler holding down one end of his man with an arm lock and the other arm bending and twisting a leg off. I saw it then, how, as his lifelong art, of all things he chose the saw, because of his father, his father's father, the place he was raised, his family's need, wrestling to his need, the clear-cut fate that he was born into, making the best of it. Can anyone do any better?
Let us now enter into our beloved community ritual of For All That Is Our Lives. I need to bring a sorrow here this morning, which happened just yesterday. Member Terry Sandhu's husband, Vasile Sandhu, passed away yesterday afternoon. We are holding Terry and her family in our prayers, Please check the internet for information concerning this week's wake and funeral. Cards and notes are welcome. Please check Realm or call the church office for Terry's address. We are also mindful of the trans community in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision to uphold Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming surgery for trans youth. It comes with frightening ramifications for trans youth in other states. Many trans folks among us find comfort and support. May they find that comfort, support, resilience in this challenging time. It's one of the most vulnerable groups among us. It is a fear-filled time. May we remain a community of support and resilience. For all that is our lives, it is a privilege to be able to bring the joys and sorrows of this community into my prayers weekly. Thank you for being here, bringing your whole selves. Thank you. In her poem entitled Prayer, Daisy Rao tells a story about her father when he was 10 years old. His life threatened during warfare in Korea, 1944. He was fleeing enemy soldiers with the rest of his family, hiding behind a burial vault in an ancient cemetery, waiting for the signal to run to the next vault and then to the next. I want to tell you, Daisy Rao says to her father in her poem, I want to tell you that my life depends on imagining your hard boy feet, the way they hit below seagrass, below the packed sand that lies on the other side of the world in the grit of my heart. We can all say something like this about the stories of the parents and the parent figures in our lives. They get inside us. They become the grit in our hearts. If we have children or grandchildren, if we are a mentor or otherwise a respected figure in another's life, they can equally say that about us. My life depends on imagining. It starts very naturally when we're young. We ache to know what the adults who are so central to our worlds were like before we were born, came on the scene, before we came to know them as mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or something else, especially when they were kids our age, their secret lives, so to speak. Our aching to know is a developmental yearning, a need for a place to grow from. We're trying to become ourselves through imagination. And this is how it happens. Their histories are the soil, the nutrients. Instinctively, our roots reach down deep into their stories. Our roots reaching down. I want you to take a moment to reconnect with a story about a parent that has meant so much to you. Is it a story of amazing courage, as in the case of Daisy Rao's father? Or maybe it's a funny story that always cracks you up. It could be so many different kinds of stories. What has inspired your imagination? They're the places we grow from. Though it's important to add that the growing is not always tidy. Our child minds can take the stories we hear and do very interesting things with them. For example, When I was young, I loved it when my dad shared tales from his Boy Scout days. This is in the 1950s in Alberta, Canada, roughing it in the wild with his fellow scouts. One time, he taught me the lyrics to a song they'd sing around the campfire at nighttime. Under the stars, fire spitting and hot. Here it goes. 99 bottles of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer. Take one down, pass it around. 99 bottles of beer on the wall, 98 bottles of beer on the wall. Are you leaving me hanging up here? 98 bottles of beer on the wall, 98 bottles of beer. Take one down, pass it around. 97 bottles of beer on the wall, 97 bottles of beer on the wall. I'm really losing some of you there. It's actually ridiculous. It's a ridiculous song. It just gets absurd so very fast. So many bottles of beer. Well, I thought it was hilarious. It also became an earworm. You know what I mean when I say earworm? It's when a song gets stuck in your head. It repeats involuntarily. There I am in first grade class. I am doing a worksheet. And I am humming a song about drinking ginormous amounts of beer. But you know, it was a piece of his life that I could actually have. It was a piece of his life I could have. I wasn't myself a scout, and I don't think I'd ever experienced a real campfire before, especially under the stars. And I was also a fairly solitary boy, a book reader, caught up in my daydreams. Furthermore, Dad was a workaholic. And though I might have spent a lot of time in the doctor's lounge at his clinic, some of you know what that story is all about, I didn't really see him that often. And outside of work, he was busy with chores. He was just a busy guy. He was busy. And as for my mom, she was no friend of the outdoors. Her preference was to be in neat and tidy, air-conditioned environments. If she ever went out and did camping, she never did, but if she did, it'd be glamping. You know what I'm talking about? How many glampers are in the space? Okay. I wanted my own experience of the wild. No one was helping me with that. I wanted that. So I came to a decision when I was around 6 years old. I would make my own campfire. Foreshadowing. So it was a Saturday. I was at home, and I seem to recall that Mom wanted me to stay indoors. Indoors, my campfire would be indoors. Oh yeah, it gets better. It gets better. My strange child's mind. See where it's going? Well, the only problem is that I didn't have access to the normal stuff of campfires, sticks and twigs and leaves. However, close to hand were items that were sort of stick-like. I'm talking about Crayola crayons. I had lots of those at my disposal. When I was sure that Mom was busy upstairs, we had a split level, she was busy upstairs, out of sight, I'd use those Crayolas to build a teepee-like structure, just like I saw on Gunsmoke, right? Some of you remember Gunsmoke, that cowboy TV show. I ripped out some pages out of one of Mom's Better Homes and Gardens magazines. The irony strikes me now. The irony, Better Homes and Gardens. Ripping up some pages, I tore them up, and I used her cigarette. She was a furious cigarette smoker. Used her cigarette lighter to get that fire going. Right on top of the living room carpet, which was classic 1970s mustard yellow shag. So I fed the mouth of that Crayola crayon teepee structure like it was positively hungry, and the flames grew. The vivid Crayola colors bubbled and flowed as I took in the whole glorious scene. I happily hummed that song that Dad and I would sing to 99 bottles of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer. In my own mind, I had become a genuine Boy Scout. Well, I'd gotten to maybe 95 bottles of beer, and then suddenly Mom was there. She was snuffing out my beautiful campfire, screaming some very bad words. My fantasizing came to a screeching halt, and I saw what I'd actually done. The Crayola colors had melted into a clump of brownish black and were already solidifying down into the shag rug fibers. I had just ruined the carpet. Now, that this would be the result of me building my own campfire in my own special way had not occurred to my 6-year-old brain. And the next few hours were torture, with Mom repeatedly yelling at me to wait, just wait until who comes home? Who comes home? Dad comes home. And I truly feared for my life. I was ready to run. But when he finally arrived and saw what I had done, strangely enough, he just seemed sympathetic. He just said, "Don't play with fire anymore, son," and then added, "indoors." As for Mom, she got a new coffee table, the one she'd been wanting for quite a while, and it was placed right on top of that ugly burn spot on the carpet. So the living room ended up looking spotless, as if it had never been, at least for the briefest of moments, a campfire scene in the wild. This is a cautionary tale I tell. Still, I am so grateful Dad shared his Boy Scout stories. Our lives depend on imagining. The secret lives of the important adults in our world are so powerful, and we need them to be. We need a place to grow from. And the nature of this need changes, though. It changes as we age. As I grew into adolescence and then into my 20s, the need fell to an all-time low, which makes sense developmentally, because at this time you're trying to nurture your own roots in your own soil, which is mixed and mingled in with the soil of your peers, together with pop culture enjoyments, enthusiasms like your favorite musical artists. You're trying to firm up your own sense of identity, separate and apart from your parents and other parent figures. If they have secret lives, good, let them stay secret, right? But we know the seasons of life cycle onward, until there came a time in my own life when this hunger to know the stories about my parents returned, and I felt it more sharply and keenly than ever before. The hunger's return was connected with the discovery back in 2001 of this photograph. My dad's the guy in the center showing off his mad yo-yo skills, right? Mad yo-yo skills. It was probably taken in 1974, something like that. Check out those 1970s fashions. Wide ties. I mean, it's black and white, but you see my dad's boots? Yeah, so that's wintertime in northern Alberta, right? Serious cold. When this photo was taken, I was around 7 years old. And maybe back then I knew about Dad's hijinks with yo-yos, but over the years I had completely forgotten until the day this photo surfaced, when I was 34 years old, facing one of the saddest days of my life, because it was a day when I was going through the ritual of sifting through a dead parent's things. Dad had died unexpectedly. He was only 60. The funeral had taken place the day before. I was in his study, surrounded by the silent witness of all of his things. a shelf full of hundreds of classic works of history and literature, leather-bound, from Franklin Mint. Handguns in the dresser drawer. Shotguns in his closet. A big messy pile of papers. And on one of these papers, I discovered a list of personal aspirations that he had made for himself. He'd written them out long, in his own handwriting. Aspirations to lift him out of the despair he had felt and had been feeling for years. It was just also removed from the playfulness reflected in his yo-yo picture. I saw all of these things and more. The hunger to know this man, which had been at an all-time low, returned with a fierceness that was astonishing. But now the underlying motivation wasn't about finding a place to grow from. I already had that. Now I found myself wanting to know who my dad was, not because he was a god to me, and I wanted to bask in that glory, but because he was a human being who, like all human beings, try to do the best they can. The flawed human being I wanted to connect with the flawed human being he was. By the time he died, I had gone through enough living to get a first-hand sense of how life can break you down, wear you down, like it did to him. But how had Dad experienced that? What did he do? The mistakes he had made, how might they speak to some of the mistakes I had made? Daddy, tell me your best secret, says the poet William Stafford in a poem where a child is speaking to his father. And the father replies, I have woven a parachute out of everything broken. My scars are my shield. And I jump, daylight or dark, into any country where as I descend, I turn native and stumble into terribly human speech and wince recognition. Moving forward, my life depended on imagining that. That's the answer I was ready for now that I was an adult. Seeing my dad's parachute that he had woven out of everything broken, witnessing how he had jumped into the complexities of his life, how he'd turned native, how he'd stumbled. But there were no answers coming. As I sat there in my dad's study, sifting through all of his things, the only things coming were questions, fast and furious. Dad, why did you have so many guns? What did that mean for you? Why did you have an entire library full of leather-bound classics, but you never read any of them? Or at least very few. When I would open these books, the spines would crack, telling me he'd never opened them. Dad, whatever happened to the playfulness and joy I saw in that yo-yo picture? I mean, all of these questions coming up, and the only person from whom direct answers could come was gone. This morning, I grieve that lost opportunity. And I also grieve the lost opportunity for my dad. Storytelling is not a one-way street. As adults, we need to be telling our stories, and when we do not, the harm to us is irreparable. Not just to our children, whatever their age happens to be, but to ourselves, Psychologist Erik Erikson became famous for identifying the main challenges that people typically face at points across the lifespan. And he identified the main challenge of mid-adulthood as finding a way to make a positive contribution to the world. And telling your stories is a part of that. You got to do it or you stagnate. Now, older adults, says Erik Erikson, face a different challenge, and that is coming to terms with their history and asking, what kind of life have I lived? What wisdom have I learned? How did I stay hopeful and persistent during times of social crisis and war? Questions like that. And telling your stories is a part of that process of hearing who you are come out in the form of speech. You got to do it, or else you fall into despair. This whole process of storytelling just does not have to be hard. The stories want to be told. They want to be completed through the telling. The 2003 classic movie entitled Secondhand Lions illustrates this. Dr. Google summarizes. It's not a real doctor, Dr. Google. Here's the movie plot. A shy adolescent boy named Walter, played by Haley Joel Osment, is taken by his greedy mother to spend the summer with his two hard-boiled great uncles, Hub, played by Robert Duvall, and Garth, played by Michael Caine. They are rumored to possess a great fortune. At first, the two old men, both set in their ways, find Walter's presence a nuisance, but they eventually warm up to the boy and regale him with tall tales from their past, and in return, Walter helps reawaken their youthful spirit. Early on in the movie, the Haley Joel Osment character, the boy, he finds the key to a trunk, which is covered with stickers from faraway places. He is struck by the contrast between this exoticism and the great uncles he's only recently been introduced to, who seem to be nothing but country bumpkin farmers. He opens the trunk and he finds a picture of a beautiful woman. It's a mystery. Who is she? Then comes a startling sound from outside the room. The boy goes to investigate, only to see one of his great uncles, played by Robert Duvall, Hub, shuffling forward in his nightdress, carrying a plunger like it was a rapier. The old man is sleepwalking. He's fighting old fights in his sleep. He's slashing away at invisible enemies. Next morning, the boy and his great uncle sit around the breakfast table, and Hub complains about soreness in his back and shoulder, saying that that new mattress is clearly not working. He is totally oblivious to how the stories in him will not let him alone until he tells them faithfully and fully, because this is what his stage of life demands from him. Tell the stories or fall into despair. As for the boy, he needs a place to grow from. He can't help but ask, so you two disappeared for 40 whole years. Where were you? And hearing that, Hub just shuts him down, growls, "We're old men, washed up. That's old history, dead and done." But we know it's not dead and done. Not at all. Can you relate to the sleepwalking scene? Can you relate to that? Do you have secret stories in you that rattle around, that want to be completed through the telling, and they won't leave you alone? Often we might not know that unless we start talking. Often the really important stories bubble up in the middle of others. grip you with an urgency that surprises. Tell one story, and this act of remembering triggers more remembering of other stories. Oh, I don't remember becomes, when we just start talking, oh yeah, here's this other thing that occurred to me. Does that make sense to you? Have you ever experienced that? The remembrance of stories bubbling up in the middle of your telling another story? It's so interesting. One story I would have loved Dad to start talking about had to do with his relationship with his own dad, my grandfather. I'm Ukrainian, so for him, he was my Dido. I'm going to refer to him as Dido from now on. So when I knew my grandfather, well, yeah, he had his gruff moments, but he was genuine, generally lovable and could be really fun to be around. In fact, I remember one time where I enthusiastically said that to my dad. I said, "Dad, Dido is such a fun guy." And Dad paused for a moment, and then he said, "He wasn't so fun back when I was a kid." And that was it. He stopped right there. I wish he'd kept talking. Years later, after Dad's death, I think from his brother, I came to learn that Dido at times could be positively brutal. My dad, as that yo-yo picture suggests, had a streak of zaniness to him. And as a teenager, one of the forms that the zany streak took was a mad scientist obsession with chemicals, creating reactions. In other words, blowing stuff up. So one day, he decided to get back at his older sister for something. He planned to create a small chemical reaction in her bedroom, a tightly controlled explosion and burn, something like that. Well, as in the campfire episode from my own childhood, that anything more could have happened just hadn't occurred to him. He ended up destroying her bed and several pieces of furniture. But the truly horrible part of this story is what happened when his dad, my Dido, came home from work and found out. Dido went straight to the garage and got his axe. He returned to the house and in a chillingly cool voice said that he'd had it up to here. Enough's enough. The kid is going to die. At which point Dido lunged after my dad with the axe in hand. Dad dodged his own father, bolted straight out of the house, ran for his life. He would not return until he was sure that his mother, my Baba, had sufficiently calmed Dido down and made him promise to stop. No one in this story was laughing. There is no fun to be found in this story of violence. And this had not been the first time Dad had been terrorized by Dido. And I wonder what that must have been like for him to carry a memory like that throughout his life. Can you imagine? Some of you can, I know. Your own dad chasing you with an axe. How this might have broken my dad's heart. I wish my dad had kept talking. All I know is that in my own campfire episode, Dad's response to me was 180 degrees different. Our parents, we hope they do, often they do, they try to do better than was done to them. And if you're a parent, we do as well. We do the best we can. Last Sunday was Father's Day. And several weeks before that was Mother's Day. And there are two things that parents can do to honor both days all year long. One is to tell our stories. Don't be like Hub in Secondhand Lions in that movie and shut the boy down when he asks, "So where were you for 40 years? For your own sake, if not for his. Tell them where you were. Tell them what you did, what you yearned for, what you achieved, what you failed at, what you hoped for, what you feared. You may remember Randy Pausch, the Carnegie Mellon University professor diagnosed with fatal pancreatic cancer. He became famous almost overnight for what was called his last lecture, delivered in 2007. He delivered it even when he was actively dying. At one point, he was asked about passing on the essential parts of himself to his children, which at the time they had like 4 kids and they were all really young. And he said, if you had 6 months to live, that's the question that was asked to him. If you had 6 months to live, where would you begin with your children? And Randy Pausch answered, don't tell people how to live their lives. Just tell them stories. How they apply, they will figure that out for themselves. That's what he said. The U.S. just bombed Iran. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that. Who knows what this will mean? So if you have been through wars before, tell your stories. How did you hold up? How did you make it through? Just tell the stories. That's one thing we can do to honor Mother's and Father's Day all year long. And as I say this, I need to acknowledge that some of us are estranged from our children. It is so painful. But there are other children who will listen. There are other people who will listen, who will use your stories as places to grow from. Even if you do not share DNA, love isn't necessarily about shared DNA. Families of choice transcend that. Thank Buddha. Thank God. And then there's this, a second thing we can do. Ask. Ask to hear these stories from the important adults in your own lives. No matter how old you may be, don't wait until all that is left is the silent witness of mere things, and the one person who could answer your questions is gone. For myself today, I am carrying in my heart the picture of my dad playing with his yo-yo. Life can hurt you down. Life can break you down. It did that to him. Yet there is triumph in being able to choose the stories we emphasize going forward. I'm grateful to you, Dad, for not killing me when I destroyed the rug. Thank you, Dad, for teaching me the Bottles of Beer song. You weren't perfect. No parent is. But thank you for giving me a place from which to grow. Thank you for your stories. Amen. Let's sing our closing hymn together. We are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nation. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. The great writer Maya Angelou says, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." And then there's the saying from Muriel Rukeyser, "The universe is made of stories, not atoms." May the agony of untold stories in us be healed. Through our stories, may we build a better universe. May we. Amen. We're going to extinguish our chalice now. Please say the words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of community, truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again.